Okay. I will share the screen. So we are doing developmental psychology, and then today we will do parenting styles. So the developmental research and categories describe focus on the behaviors of children. Parents' interaction with their children definitely has an influence on the day we develop and can be categorized in similar ways. Developmental psychologist Diana Burmind researched parent-child interactions and describes three overall categories of parenting styles. Authoritarian parents. This is style number 1. Authoritarian parents set strict standards per their children's behavior and apply punishment per violation of these rules. Apply punishment. Obedient attitudes are valued more than discussion about the rationale behind the standards. Punishment per undesired behavior is more often used than reinforcement per desired behavior. If your parents were authoritarian and you came in 15 minutes after your curfew, you might be grounded from going out again the rest of the month without explanation or discussion. Then what do you think? Is your parents authoritarian style or not?
Sometimes, like my mother especially is conservative, so sometimes she is authoritarian. But
Oh.
it's maybe more like my grandmother's time. Like
Mm.
at that time, yeah, they were strict and more like adapt to the authoritarian style at that time.
Okay, and then, do you does your home have a curfew time? Curfew?
Before when we were still like a university student, like we had to go home earlier.
Oh, how early? At
Like how
nine,
early? How
9.
early? 8 or 9? Yeah.
Oh, is it too early?
Yeah.
So, oh, it's too early, I think, for the university students. I think, oh, you must be some like stressed per about like to adopt that rules. Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Your parents must be a little bit like strict, a little bit conservative.
Yeah, my mom.
Yeah, my parents as well. They have some like rules, and then actually, my mom nags a lot. She is nagging mom, so if I like follow the rules, she nags a lot. It's a kind of like punishment. So
All right.
she just keep like telling the same thing like more than 100 times, and then you have to like be just because the outsider at night is like dangerous. My mom like told me like that it is really dangerous outside, like
I agree.
yeah, after 9 p.m. Okay, so and then she just keep calling me.
Oh, yeah.
It's the
I
same.
see. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the same. It's the same thing.
yeah. So Yeah, so I understand my mom's feeling because she is a little bit nervous and then anxious about the any kind of accident or some kind of kidnapping or some kind of
Oh.
disaster, and then so yeah, but now I understand. So, okay, let's continue. Permissive parent. Okay. This is parenting style number 2. Permissive parents, they do not set clear guidelines, do not set for their children. The rules that do exist in the family are constantly changes or are not enforced consistently. Mm. I love this kind of parenting style. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They,
Maybe nowadays, this
yeah,
one.
yeah. They are not enforced. Yeah. Family members may perceive that they can get away with anything at home. If your parents were permissive and you came in 15 minutes after your curfew, your parents' reaction would be unpredictable. They may not notice, not seem to mind, or threaten you with a punishment that they never follow through on. Mm. And the number 3, parenting style, authoritative parents. These parenting styles have set consistent standards for their children's behavior, but the standards are reasonable and explained. The rationale for family rules are discussed with children old enough to understand them. Authoritative parents encourage their children's independence, but not past the point of violating rules. They praise as often as they punish. In general, explanations are encouraged in an authoritative house. And the rules are reasonable and consistent. Mm. Consistent. If your parents were authoritative and you came in 15 minutes after your curfew, you would already know the consequences of your action. You would know what the family rule was breaking curfew, why the rule existed, what the consequences were, and your parents would make sure you suffered the consequences. So they show that the authoritative style for this is the most desirable and beneficial home environment. Children from authoritative homes are more socially capable and perform better academically on average. The children of permissive parents are more likely to have emotional control programs and are more dependent. Authoritarian parents' children are more likely to distrust others and be withdrawn from peers. I think so. Are you agree?
Yeah, I agree with this one.
Yeah. These studies indicate another way in which our upbringing influences our development. Researchers agree that parenting style is certainly not the whole or final answer to why we develop the way we do. However, it is a key influence along with genetic makeup, peer relationship, and other environmental influences on thought and behavior. And Stacy theories. Besides nature versus nurture, one of the other major controversies in developmental psychology is the argument about continuity versus discontinuity. Do we develop continually at a steady rate from birth to death? Or is our development discontinuous? Happening in phases and starts with some period of rapid development. And some of relatively little change. Biologically, we know our development is somewhat discontinuous. We grow more as in an infant and during our adolescent growth spur than at the other times in our lives. However, what about psychologically? Do we develop in our thought and behavior continuously or discontinuously? Psychologist Vygotsky's concept of zone of proximal development is one answer to this question of continuity versus discontinuity. A child's zone of proximal development is the range of tasks that children can perform independently and those tasks the child needs assistance with. Teachers, parents can provide scaffolds for students to help them accomplish tasks at the upper end of their zone of proximal development, encouraging further cognitive development. 7 theories conclude that we pass through certain stages in the development, certain psychological traits, and their theories attempt to explain these stages. Stage theories are, by definition, discontinuous theories of development. You may notice that the first two stage theories, Sigmund Freud and Erik Erikson, base these stages on psychoanalytic theories and are therefore less scientifically verifiable than the other stage theories. They are included because their stages are still often used to describe how we develop in specific areas and are of historic importance. And Sigmund Freud. Historically, Freud was the first to theorize that we pass through different stages in childhood. Freud said, we develop through 5 psychosexual stages. Sexual to Freud meant not the act of intercourse, but how we get sensual pleasure from the world. If we fail to resolve a significant conflict in our lives during one of these stages, Freud said we could become fixated in the stage, meaning we might remain preoccupied with the behaviors. Associated with that stage. Freud described 5 psychosexual stages like this. Oral stage. In this stage, infants seek pleasure through their mouths. You might notice that the babies tend to put everything they can grab into their mouths if they can get away with it. Freud thought that people fixated at this stage might overeat, smoke, and in general have a childlike dependence on things and people. I think I'm kind of like oral Stacy because I'm a little bit like independent because when I was like in my 20s. So, and what about you?
Yeah, maybe sometimes I overeat especially when I get stressed.
Yeah. So maybe we have some kind of like oral stages, fixated, and the second one is anal stage. This stage developed during toilet training. If conflict around toilet training arises, a person might fixate in the stage and be overly controlling retentive, or out of control, expressive. Ella says. Mm, mm. And Paulik says, during this stage, babies realize their gender, and this causes conflict in the family. Freud described the process boys go through in this stage as the Oedipus complex, and boys resent their father's relationship with their mother. He has kind of like a feeling of jealousy to their like father, like you know. So there is a trial relationship. So the son and the father and the mother, and the mother like just like between the mother and the mother is sometimes like just the son want to have sex with their mother. Like someday he just say, I want to get married with you, like in the future, someday when I grown up. So this is the stage, public stage.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And the process for girls is called the electra complex. So for me, when I was young, like 4 or 5 years old, I told like to my father, if I will not get married, like I will marry with you. I
Oh,
just yeah told my father and mother, and then this is the Electra complex.
mm,
Yeah. So conflict in this stage could cause later problems in relationship. Mm,
I see.
mm. And latency. After the public stage, Freud thought children go through a short latency stage or period of calm. Like usually this stage is like occur during the elementary school like period. So
Mm,
yeah, between the age of 6 and puberty of low psychosexual anxiety, that most psychologists don't regard as a separate stage. Yeah. And the next one is genital stage. They then enter the genital stage, where they remain for the rest of their lives. The focus of sexual pleasure is the genitals, and fixation in this stage is what Freud considered normal. In this stage, the fixation is normal.
like the
So,
adults.
yeah, others like cause that's why the others they're like uh just like their like pleasure is obsessed to the like the genital area organ. So yeah, because this is the last stage.
I see.
Mhm. And next theory is Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson was neo-Freudian, a theorist who believed in the basics of Freud theory. Mm. Mm. But adapted it to fit his own observations. Through his own life experiences of identity formation and his study in psychoanalysis with Anna Freud, Sigmund Freud's daughter, Erikson developed his own stasis theory. Of development. He thought that our personality was profoundly influenced by our experience with others. So he created the psychosocial stasis theory. It consists of 8 stages, each stage centering on a specific social conflict. And the first stage is trust versus mistrust. Baby's first social experience of the world centered on needs fulfillment. Babies learn whether or not they can trust that the world provides for their needs. Erikson thought that babies need to learn that they can trust their caregivers and that they recast, cry at first, are effective. This sense of trust or mistrust will carry throughout the rest of our lives, according to Erikson. And autonomy versus shame and doubt. In this next stage, toddlers begin to exert their will over their own bodies for the first time. Autonomy is our control of our body. And Erikson thought that potty training was an early effort at gaining this control. Toddlers should also learn to control temper tantrums during this stage. Children's most popular word during this stage might be no, demonstrating their attempt to control themselves and others. If we learn how to control ourselves and our environment in reasonable ways, we develop a healthy will. Erikson believes that we can then control our own body and emotional reactions during the rest of the social challenges we will face. Initiative versus skill. In this stage, children's favorite word changes from no to why. If we trust those around us and feel in control of our bodies, we feel a natural curiosity about our surroundings. Children in this stage want to understand the world. We take the initiative in problem solving and ask many questions. If this initiative is encouraged, we'll feel comfortable about expressing our curiosity through the rest of the stages. If the rules around us scold us for our curiosity, we might learn to feel guilty about asking questions and avoid doing so in the future. Mm. Mm. And next one is industry versus inferiority. This stage is the beginning of our formal education. Preschool and kindergarten were mostly about play and entertainment. In the first grade, for the first time, we are asked to produce work that is evaluated. We expect to perform, as well as our peers, at games and school work. If we feel that we are as good at kickball as child in the next test, we feel confident, competent. If we realize that we are behind and cannot do as well as our peers, having an inferiority complex. We may feel anxious about our performance in that area throughout the rest of the stages. And identity versus role confusion. In adolescence, Erickson felt our main social task is to discover what social identity we are most comfortable with. He thought that a person might naturally try out different roles before he or she found the one that best fit his or her internal sense of self. Adolescents try to fit into groups in order to feel confident in their identities. An adolescent should figure out a stable sense of self. People moving on to the next stage or risk having an identity crisis later in life. And intimacy versus isolation. Young adults who establish stable identities then must figure out how to balance their ties and efforts between work and relationship with other people. How much time should we spend on ourselves and how much time with our families? What is the difference between a platonic and a romantic relationship? Again, the pattern established in this stage. Will influence the effort spent on self and others in the future. Mm. And generativity versus stagnation. Erickson felt that by the time we reach this age, we are starting to look critically at our life path. We want to make sure that we are creating the type of life that we want for ourselves and family. We might try to seize control of our lives at this point to ensure that things go as we plan. In this stage, we try to ensure that our lives are going the way we want them to go. Mm. If they are not, we may try to change our identities. Mm. Or control those around us to change our lives. Mm. Toward the end of life, we look back at our accomplishments and decide if we are satisfied with them or not. Erickson thought that if we can see our lives were meaningful, we can step outside the stress and pressures of society and offer wisdom and insight. If, however, we feel serious regret over how we lived our lives, we may fall into despair over lost opportunities. And cognitive development. Parents often focus intently on the intellectual development of their children. Intelligence is a notoriously difficult trait to assess. However, developmental researchers try to describe how children think about and evaluate the world. Jean Piaget's cognitive developmental theory is the most famous theory of this type. However, some researchers now criticize part of his theory and offer alternative explanations for the same behaviors. Jean Piaget was working for Alfred Binet, creator of the first intelligence test. Maybe you know him, right?
Yeah, he is popular
Yeah,
in
yeah,
education.
yeah. When he started to notice interesting behaviors in the children he was interviewing, Piaget noticed that children of roughly the same age almost always give similar answers to some of the questions on the intelligence test, even if the answers were wrong. He hypothesized that this was because they were all thinking in similar ways, and these ways of thinking differ from the ways others think. This hypothesis led to Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Piaget described how children view the world through schemata. Cognitive rules we use to interpret the world. Normally, we incorporate our experiences into these existing schemata in a process called assimilation. Sometimes information does not fit into or violates our schemata. So we must accommodate and change our schemata. For example, a 4-year-old boy named Daniel gets a pair of cowboy boots from his parents for his birthday. He wears his cowboy boots constantly and does not see anyone else wearing them. Daniel develops a schemata for cowboy boots. Only little boys wear boots. Most of his experiences do not violate this schemata. He sees other little boys wearing boots and assimilates this information into his schemata. Then, Daniel's family take a trip to Arizona. When he gets off the plane, he sees a huge man wearing cowboy boots. Daniel points at the man and starts to laugh hysterically. Why is Daniel causing this scene? His schemata has been violated. To Daniel, the large man is dressing like a little boy. After he stops laughing, Daniel will have to accommodate this new information and change his schemata to include the fact that others can wear cowboy boots too. By the way, this process may repeat itself for the first time Daniel sees a woman in boots. Piaget thinks human goes through this process of schemata creation, assimilation, and accommodations as we develop cognitively. His cognitive development theory describes how our thinking processes through per stages. Okay, so time is almost up, so let's call it a day. So let's continue tomorrow about the the other thing, okay?
Okay. So what time are we gonna start tomorrow? Is it still 7 p.m.?
Yeah, 7 p.m.
Okay.
Okay, enjoy your night time.
Yeah, you too. Have a good night then.
Yeah, bye bye.
Bye.
See you.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.